Hi everyone, welcome back to the GallowgateShots YouTube and podcast channel. We are back with what is probably going to be the most tired match reaction you'll ever see on this channel. The most emphatic match reaction you're ever going to see on this channel, because unless you've been living under the rock, under the rock or a rock.
Under the rock.
I mean, if you've been living under the rock, more play too, but unless you've been living under a rock for the past 24 hours, you should know by now that Newcastle hosted a little game of football last night. And it was against a French side from Paris, a small French club from Paris, shall we say. And we absolutely annihilated them, 4-1. That's right. This is the match preview for last night's Champions League.
Match preview?
Extravaganza.
This is how tired we are.
I told you
we
it's
don't even know what it is anymore.
Previews and reactions and everything coming out my arse. It is the match reaction for Newcastle United 4, Paris Saint-Germain 1. I'm Scott. I think I'm your host for this one, although Ian seems to be doing a better job than I am at the moment. And I am joined by Ian and Daryl. Before we jump into the game, boys, has everybody calmed down yet? Or are we still like a kid on Christmas?
No, I haven't calmed down yet. I'm going to add to your list there that it's probably going to be the most emotionally charged match reaction as well, I think.
Well, no bubbling, Daryl.
I'm already there, mate. I'm sorry. It's already happened.
Ian, obviously, you and I had to watch it from the comfort of our own homes. Not each other's home, but, you know, it's been a bit of a long stretch for me to go over there. And if I was going over there, I'm getting a ticket. And if you're coming over here, then, you know, you're more than welcome. But, you know, you probably heard us shouting when we scored anyway. So, but how are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Just as you said, Newcastle 4, PSG 1 still doesn't seem real. Seems like what Daryl said, where we're just reviewing the FIFA match that you played. It doesn't seem real life. Considering literally like almost to the day 2 years ago, we had our last game under Mike Ashley. Got beat off Wolves away. Jeff Hendrick scored. I know he's still on our books by technicality, but just the turnaround in 2 years. I know we're not like a sort of club that's worked way up, similar to what Brighton, but it's our story, and it just feels like that time 2 years ago, our story was nothing but doom and gloom. We're destined for relegation, and just went and beat Kylian Mbappe's PSG megastars with all their big bucks, and done it with the most convincing and tactically sound performance I've ever seen from a Newcastle side. It's just absolutely mental.
Well, we'll take it way back to is it an hour and 30 minutes before kickoff, Daryl, when you get the lineups?
Yeah.
Obviously, lineup was announced. You got it nice and early for, as you always do. With your
That's about 2 hours after Daryl gets in the ground.
Daryl has no problems with tickets getting around the queuing up, because he's there. He's still there now. He's just got a bedroom in the back of the Gallowgate.
Yeah, just got a little office in the corner.
But lineup, obviously, it's kind of what we were expecting. You know, kind of was what we called. What I called on the FIFA thing. We called it in the match preview. There wasn't really any surprises, but the bench. You looked at that bench before kickoff and started to get a bit worried.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of depth on that bench at all, was there? I mean, it's definitely a sign of concern when you've got to name 2 goalkeepers just to fill your bench quota. And even when you look at the outfield players that were on that bench, apart from really Elliot Anderson and Matty Target, there wasn't really much first team experience in there either. You know, I mean, I still don't think I would have had a problem if Lewis Mannion had to come on, like, and how we're playing anyway. Probably would have just turned into prime Yaya Toure or prime Pirlo and just ran it anyway. But
probably,
I mean, like you say, we sort of predicted that lineup. I mean, I still thought Callum Wilson might have had a chance, but obviously he's been kept. I think it's probably a wise move as well. I don't want to step on the toes of our West Ham preview, but I think there's a reason why he was kept for West Ham, and we'll get onto that when we do it. And I think it really, you know, I have to pay props to everybody that played, because the effort and the energy that they needed to put into that, to get that display, to get that game plan executed to perfection, really, is the only word you can say, because of how we dealt with them. I mean, I said to you guys late on last night when I was still away and feeling all wistful and emotional, and I likened it. So 20 years ago, Bobby's boys made a generation of heroes out of themselves, to many people, including myself at the time. And I think Eddie Howe's boys last night just repeated that feat for a new generation and for the generation that's already gone as well. These are the kind of nights that don't come around very often. They're very special. You could tell on the TV straight away. War flags. Props to you guys. It was a fantastic display, and I was proud to be proud to be able to take part in it. And the atmosphere was. I think I said in the preview that it would be on a next level to what we would expect, what we'd ever experienced before, and by God, did we live up to that expectation of mine. I've never experienced it before in my life, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. And I know Chris and Daniel have just, as we've recorded, they've just finished a live where they talk more about their experience of the game and how the atmosphere and everything was. So we'll not touch too much on that, but if you want to go back and watch that after you've watched this one, that's a good little watch as well, because I think Daniel sums up quite nicely that it's quite hard to explain the emotion because it's a different part of the brain to your logic in terms of describe that sort of thing. But Ian, game kicks off and first 5-10 minutes, it's all PSG, and you're thinking, we're in for something here. But we kind of just clicked. Something happened where we just figured them out after that first 5-10 minute rough spell. And I don't even want to say rough spell, to be honest, because I don't think they had a shot on target. They just had a lot of the ball, and we were expecting that anyway. But something just clicked with that team where we just kind of figured them out a little bit. We knew what to do against them.
Yeah, totally. I think it was maybe the first 5 minutes that had that Dembele shot where he ghosted in sort of at the back post, completely unmarked. Yeah. And I was thinking, is this going to just be like a forecast of what's going to be for the rest of the night? It's dangerous. For all that he hasn't had a great start to his PSG career, I think they were saying that he hasn't scored a goal for them yet. Still a dangerous player. I think he's a World Cup winner with them, with France, sorry. So to give players like that space, I was just thinking this is going to be a long night. But like you say, I don't know if it was sort of something just twigged in everyone's minds that we're at home, like we've got nothing to lose, like we've got the crowd behind us. And it was just like tackles, like before we even scored, went like and putting balls out for throw-ins. Like everyone was celebrating them like goals, like the players, the fans, like. And it came from, like you said, they had a lot of the ball for the majority of the match. But I think we set up, like I said at the sort of intro, it was the most tactically sound we've ever been. Usually we press with such intensity at all costs. And you'll see sort of groups of 2-3 players closing down a ball, whereas we tweaked it a little bit and we just went man for man with each one of their players, let them have the ball in certain areas, and would drop back to a sort of a 4-5-1. And then when it was time to press with the intensity, and they seemed a little bit shell-shocked. They didn't really know what to do. Even when they had the ball almost sitting up, they literally just passed it between the two centre halves for sort of a minute or so to try and I just think we got it so right yesterday, and literally every one of those players came off with a massive credit of themselves, and got no look no further than the likes of Jamal Lascelles, who we all know his limitations, but it was a sort of almost like a Cinderella story for him that at 22 years old, when we were getting beaten, it was 4-0. He stepped forward to be a leader in the dressing room. He called out the mercenaries that were hard, and obviously got the captaincy, and then captained her through that championship winning season. And for him to now captain the side and lead the side out against PSG in the chat, I still can't believe I'm saying these words in the Champions League. And put in such a solidly sound performance. He didn't put foot rotten. To be honest, none of them did. And we'll touch on the goals in a second because obviously the first goal comes from that press. But obviously every single one that stepped onto that pitch last night comes away with a huge amount of credit.
Absolutely. Daryl, yeah, we will come to the first goal. Only took us 17 minutes for Miggy Almiron. But
Yeah.
I think a lot has to be said about the press, the way we won the ball back. It forced Isak, and you're thinking, he's got this. Like, Isak, put your house on it. Unfortunately, Donnarumma is a very, very good goalkeeper. Although, we did put 4 past him. He's a very good goalkeeper. He's a big presence in that box, and he manages to tip away Isak's shot. And I think he thinks he's put it into a safe place, but that wasn't the story, was it?
Absolutely not. I've got to give props to Miggy for being on his toes and reacting to it the way he did as well. I mean, we all thought that Isak was going to bury it as soon as it dropped to him. And I mean, like you say, you've got to pay homage to that press because that press won the ball in that position and it just dropped to Isak straight away. And you would normally put your house on that sort of chance being finished. You really would. But yeah, for Miggy to come in, to open his body the way he did and to just slot it into the opposite bottom corner. I mean, it sent the place into raptures. I think Chris mentions it on the reaction there he did with Dan about there being a pop in the atmosphere and that pop that led to the crowd roar and erupted into noise. I don't think that I've ever heard that noise before. I mean, I've heard versions of that noise before, but not to that extreme level, basically. And you know what it is? That really set the tone for the rest of that half as well, because as soon as that goal went in, I think PSG the lads must have just turned around themselves and says, "What the hell have we got ourselves into here?" Because, before the game, people who were asking me what I thought and how I thought we'd get on, it's like, well, to me, I thought we had the shock factor and that unknown entity factor to us, and that, to be honest, that is exactly what happened. They didn't know what to expect from us. Yes, they're experienced players that they've got World Cup winners in that squad, but they didn't know what to expect coming here because they've never come to a place like this before. And as soon as that happened, and as soon as that first goal was in, they're pretty much like, I don't want to be here anymore, because it was just non-stop after that. I mean, yes, you said earlier, they had most of the possession, and we had quite a low amount of possession for our game, basically. But when you think about it, we were by far more direct and more clinical.
Yeah.
I think at half time it read something like 9 attempts we had, and 4 of them were on target, and PSG had none. So that tells you everything you needed to know.
I mean, we discussed it in the match preview. PSG like to have a lot of shots; they don't get many on target, and then usually the ones they do get on target, they tend to make something of or even score. It was weird watching PSG last night. It was like two teams. It was like watching an American football team. They've got the offense and the defense teams, but where the offense and the defense teams are on the same pitch at the same time, and they're playing two totally different games. You had like the first kind of the first 6 players, defense and the 2 midfielders, really doing to us what we were doing to them, tracking the ball down, actually winning it back quite nicely, and doing things to a certain level. But what they didn't have was up front. They didn't have that same intensity like we did. So what I noticed with what we were doing is we were almost pincering every player as soon as they got the ball. So you had your midfield and your attackers going against one player as soon as you got the ball, or it was a midfielder and a defender going against an attacker. They didn't have that from the front line, and those 4 front players, maybe it's even 5 of them, they just didn't want to track back at all. Like they had no intention of defending at any point in that game. And I think a lot of that has to do with arrogance. I think they maybe think, it's just Newcastle. They're the 4th seed team in this group. If Milan could have finished the dinner, it would have been a totally different story, whatever. And I think they underestimated us. And then, like you say, as soon as that first goal goes in, as soon as they hear that roar from the crowd, it's too late. Like, we have the momentum. Ian, not too much longer. I think it was on the 39th minute. We get a second goal. I believe it's from a corner. I think it comes from a corner, from a free kick.
Free kick.
The
Free
ball's
kick.
whipped in. Yeah, it's a free kick. So the ball's whipped in. It's Jamal Lascelles at the far post who initially heads it, not with his hand. Well, it does hit his hand. Let's be honest, it hits his hand, but it doesn't give him any form of advantage, and that's the rule. The ball gets played out. I think Bruno gets it.
Yeah.
And I think Dan Burns saying in his post-match interview, I was screaming at Bruno because he didn't put it at the back post. He takes a shot. Falls to Tonali, goes back to Bruno, and then I'll let you finish it off because it's probably one of the best headers you'll ever see.
There was literally no one else on that pitch that was going to get that ball other than Dan Burn. You could just see it. A lovely description of the player that you've just said. And when Bruno gets that ball the second time, you can see Burn just going, right, I'm at the back post. Bruno puts a really, really good ball in because he has to get it over. I think the defender and the keeper keep it at the right height, keep it at the right pace. And Dan Burn literally just takes off like a 747. And slightly unlucky for Donnarumma because it is a good stop, but it's over the line. But because I felt a bit sorry for Dan Burn because obviously the flag then goes up, so you're thinking what's happened. I personally thought Bruno was offside in the when he got the second ball, but it was no real different for us at home to the people in the stadium because they weren't showing replays and the commentators weren't hearing the VAR conversation, so we didn't know what they were checking. Then they started showing sort of one replay of one part of it. And then I think there's the semi-automated offside, which they had in the World Cup. That needs to be brought into the Premier League, but that's a different story. And then they show that handball. And to me, I called it from the off. Wait, I didn't. Sophie did. She went, well, both of them have handballed it. I was just like, really? And you look, and it hits Lascelles, and I think it's Hakimi. It hits both of the hands at the exact same time. So for me, if you're going to rule that out for a handball for Jamal Lascelles, you then have to rule a handball for Hakimi and would get a penalty. It's just annoying that we didn't know what was being checked. And it kind of stole Dan Burns' moment a little bit because you all know with VAR, you can't really celebrate. But when the referee gestured and pointed, I lost my shit. Like, I was thinking 1-0 against PSG, like, get in, we've got a goal, we can be proud of that. To then go 2-0 up before half time, I had to sit down and just take a couple of minutes to actually process what was happening. And by that point, we looked the better side because we haven't even touched on the Fabian Schär corner. So the ball by Trippier, I initially thought he shanks it, but it's just a very, very well-worked goal. I don't think Schär can do any better than he does because he's got such a narrow space to get that ball beyond the defender and then took it inside the post. And then obviously the net ripples, but it's because the ball hits off the advertising board. Like, we were so dominant in that first half. And you look back at a week ago, the first half we had against another elite side, Man City, and it's just chalk and cheese from that. And it's absolute, like, I still cannot process how good we were because that is probably the best I've ever seen Newcastle play football. And it wasn't that we had all this flair and were knocking it about and PSG couldn't get near us. It was just that we were so tactically on our game. We didn't have to have world-class players like Kylian Mbappe to pull off that game plan. You've got, and again, it goes back to Eddie Howe's mantra of intensity is our identity. You've got players at the club now that just want to graft in, especially on the stage like the Champions League, especially local boys like Dan Burn, and we'll touch on it in a second, the third goal scorer, Longstaff, Jacob Murphy, a lifelong fan. Like, you've just got all these players that, yes, aren't household names, but just care that much that Newcastle are in the Champions League. And it's like, it is genuinely like you had the 52,000 or 49,000, whatever, Newcastle fans playing, and they embodied every one of those fans and put it in that performance. I keep saying it, but I genuinely can't believe how good we were.
I've just come in there, Scott, just to give a perspective on the VAR decision-making process inside the ground. So where I sit is just beneath match control and next to the what is normally the TV studio for domestic broadcast for Sky. Is Sky are here. they'll normally take that box and have the TV studio put in there. So last night in that box was the TNT group. So you had Shea Given and Rio Ferdinand sitting in there watching the half on TV. So when it goes to VAR, and we're all stood around thinking, well, what the hell is he called VAR for? And then we see the offside flag goes up. And we're thinking, well, who's offside? Nobody looked offside. And then all of a sudden, I just happened to turn my head and I noticed a few people further along were sort of like gesturing up to Shea and Rio in that box, and sort of like saying, well, what's going on? Because they've got the benefit of a TV to watch the game. And then a couple of minutes goes by and it's like, well, what, is it a goal or is it not? And then all of a sudden I just see Rio stood up and he's going like this. He says, it's not a goal. It's not a goal. Sorry, it's not offside. Sorry, that's what he was saying. It's not offside. And then he was trying. You could tell he was shouting, but obviously it's mouthing. He's mouthing, "It's a goal," and Shea's going, "It's a goal," and we're just waiting. They're trying to communicate to us, say we're just waiting for the decision on TV, and then it felt like it took forever. It literally felt like it took ages for this to get sorted out. And I understand they probably wanted to take an extra little bit of time, given what happened at Tottenham at the weekend, and then you just get to the point where the referee is just about to blow his whistle, and I just happened to look back round to see what the dads were up to in the box. And Shea and Rio are going absolutely ballistic. And it's that split second moment the referee then blows and makes the signal to say that it's been reviewed and it's going to be a goal. And he points it down, and I just had to do it. I had to look around again. And Shea's just in the box, just giving it 6 now with the celebration. It's just lovely to see. And I mean, to go 2-0 up at that point, like Ian said, I just couldn't believe it. And it was really hard to believe that we were as good as we were. And that's credit to the crowd and for ramping up the atmosphere. Eddie mentioned it, that it took that, it needed us to be on side, and we were. And it just really started to carry us through that game. And the wave was just starting to get bigger and bigger.
Well, just before half time, obviously Alex Isak goes down. I still cannot see how or what he's done. Even I've seen that replay about 3 or 4 times. I still cannot figure out how he's cut his eye from what happens, because he's on top of the player.
Yeah,
and to be honest, it's a pretty bad challenge. If I'm being honest with you, it's not like a malicious challenge, but it's just clumsy. He kind of slides into him. He then falls over him. And he ends up on top of him, and it doesn't seem to be going fast enough to cut your eye or anything like that. It just seems to happen. And obviously, gets his Terry Butcher bandage on, and away he goes. And that's causing him trouble for the rest of that first half. It keeps slipping into his eyes. Luckily, he's okay to continue because we don't have another striker on the on the bench. Although maybe he would have played Lewis Miley. Who knows? But I don't think he's that much of a striker, to be honest. We probably would have moved Miggy into the middle. And then also just before half time, Miggy goes down with a bad challenge on his foot as well.
Yes,
And you're thinking, okay, you've got to make that half time, and don't know if he's going to come out. Luckily, he does. One thing I'll say, Ian, and obviously we were watching this at home, and I think time probably went a bit faster at home than it did in the ground, but 7 minutes of injury time in that second half seemed like that didn't even cover the VAR decision. And I'm not saying I wanted more, but we were in a position where we were on top, and we didn't really want half time to come at that point in the game, obviously not knowing what's coming in the second half. You probably wanted a few extra minutes just to see what else you could do in that game. And I just felt like 7 minutes was, maybe 4 minutes too little for what we got.
Well, I think the VAR check was at least 3 or 4, and then Isak was down for a good 5 minutes. But I was the opposite to you, because although we were on top, I still go back to the days of under Alan Pardew, under Steve Bruce, under Steve McLaren, where we get a goal but then we'll concede. So I wanted half time just to get in, get Isak glued up instead of his bandage. But yeah, I thought I was a little bit too short as well. But you know what it is, I couldn't care less. Nah, it doesn't matter. We got in 2. We got in 2-0 up. And then I sort of had to take a breath. I had to calm us down. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then I was thinking, PSG surely aren't going to be as bad in the second half as they were the first. And then we come out and we picked up where we left off straight away. And if you want us to talk you through the third goal,
go ahead.
So it initially starts and Miggy drives forward and Trippier's on the over. So it breaks to Miggy. Miggy's running forward and Trippier's on the overlap. And I was annoyed at the time because the pass was a little bit behind Trippier.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, oh, there's a chance gone. But then going back to what you said, that front four of PSG just did not want to defend at all. It's like watching pro clubs with you lot. You just stay up front while I do all the craft. But
You do
Trippier,
it well, mate. You do it well.
Thank you very much. Trippier pulls off Mbappe. Not like that.
Easy.
Trippier gets away from Mbappe. That's a better phrase. And then Longstaff, because I think it's off that. I can't remember his name. It's someone Emery, Warren something Emery, the number 33 for PSG. I thought he was really good, to be honest, a young lad. But he just lets Longstaff ghost in behind it. It's a fantastic run, really good time ball. And Longstaff hits that as best he could. I think it's going in anyway, but then it goes off Donnarumma's glove and goes in. And at that point, I think I squealed and laughed because I genuinely, I thought someone was just making it up. And it's to get, again, Sean Longstaff, who came out not too long ago and said that he thought his time at Newcastle was up under previous management. He wasn't enjoying his football. I probably give him a lot of stick and not really realising what he does or appreciates what he does. And since he's come back into that midfield, it looks so much more like a unit. And that goes for the defence, defensively in the game yesterday, we were so well organised. And for him and Dan Burn to get a goal in the first Champions League game at home for 21, 22 years or whatever it is, I think the TNT producers and stuff were saying, it's like you couldn't script it better, and you couldn't. For me, even though I was at home, I had, so the closest I got was the 2 goals Longstaff scored against Southampton in the semi-final. That, for me, I thought I had peaked there. And then to have 2 local lads score in the Champions League, I genuinely was, my head was buzzing. It was absolutely amazing. And then, obviously, I'll let you take the rest of the story in the second half.
We mentioned Mickey Daryl. Obviously, his injury was a bit worse than maybe we thought, and he did have to come off. And I think it's Elliot Anderson that comes on to replace him. And I put in the group chat, we're going to get a Geordie hat trick here. And it would have been fitting, and it's unfortunate for Elliot Anderson because he deserved his goal at the weekend that he didn't get with that dive netter, which didn't go over the line and got saved very, very well. But unfortunately, it's PSG that pulled one back. Not long after the Longstaff goal, and to be honest, it's the first real decent bit of play that they string together that creates a chance. And I think it was the first shot on target. I think Nick Pope pulls off a good save in the first half. But it's that first shot on target in that half, and they score from it, and you're just thinking, we've walked them. They've woken up.
Yeah.
I don't say sleeping giant, the sleeping whatever has woke up. But yeah.
I mean, the move for the goal itself, the run that's made by the goal scorer, who, forgive me because I can't remember.
Lucas Hernandez.
Lucas Hernandez. So he makes a fantastic run and nobody picks him up. And I don't know if that's just because it's a moment or a lapse of concentration from the guys in defence, and he just manages to get through unmarked, unchecked. And it's a great ball in, and he just has. It doesn't have to do much to put it in. He just has to give it a nod, and it pops into the back of the net. But the thing that got me when that happened was the reaction of the defence, and there was a very quick burst of frustration. And I would probably liken it to, if it happens in, I think there would have been a burst of anger and frustration, like very short burst of that. But very quickly, they then realised that, right, lads, we've got to keep switching on here because this isn't going to happen again. And it doesn't. And I think at that point, that's when you start to see a bit of a turn as well of momentum. You would think that sort of thing would damage us, but it didn't really damage me. We used it to our advantage and we gained strength from that. and that's emphasised by, I think, was it either Mbappe or Dembele who got through, and then all of a sudden Jamal Lascelles steams over at full pelt. Like this is someone who you don't really assume is blessed with pace, but he absolutely busted his gut to make up about 20 or 30 yards at full pace, and he manages to knock. It was Mbappe actually, so he manages to knock Mbappe with a very legal, very fair shoulder barge to put him off balance and put him off taking a shot. And again, that was celebrated like a goal. The whole Leeds' end just erupted when that happened. And that wasn't the only time it happened. There's a few times when Dan Burn puts the ball out for a throw-in or a hard tackle goes in. Every time it happened, we celebrate like it's a goal, and that's us appreciating the effort and the graft that's being put in. And it was important that the players understood that, and we made sure that they did. And, you know, I think it helped them to galvanise themselves and be ready to keep going and to see the game out. And then obviously, as the game wears on, a couple of their changes are made. Jacob Murphy comes on. Anthony Gordon goes off, I think. Or did he stay on to the end? I can't quite remember. But
he came off right at the end, I think.
He came off right at the end, didn't he? And of course, what happens right at the death? The board goes up and you're thinking, there's another 5, I think it's another 5 minutes added on at the very end. And then no sooner has the board gone down than Fabian Schär wins a tackle from a goal kick in like the final third. Final PSG third. And you're thinking, what the hell is he doing that for? He must have been up for some sort of corner or attack or something. So he's still in that position. And he comes in and he slides in and he wins this ball. He gets up and he plays this delicious little 1-2 with Murphy, who just lays it off to him. And the second that Fabian Schär won that sliding tackle, I thought, there's a goal coming here. I actually did genuinely think that Fabian Schär was going to score as soon as he won the tackle. Didn't know how it was going to come about. Didn't know if it would be a case of him picking up the ball and taking it himself and then cracking it in. But obviously it came about as this little 1-2 with Murphy. And he just receives that pass from Murphy. And he's already fallen over because the ground's wet because it had been raining for most of the game. Mm-hmm. And even though he's off balance, he still gets a fantastic connection on it. And you know what it is? The second it left his foot, it hadn't even entered the box. And I turned to celebrate because I knew it was going in. And I just turned to the guy that was stood next to me and I was like, I just waited for the roar and I was just all over the place. Couldn't believe it. And when you see it, Donnarumma has absolutely no chance with it. He's full stretch and he can't reach it. It's going that far into the corner. And we all know how well Fabian Schär can hit a ball. And even when he's fallen over, he still hits a ball with such ferocity that it's too fast for anybody to try and save. And I couldn't think of a better way to have topped the performance off. To be honest, it was just the icing on the cake, the cherry on top, whatever the hell you want to call it. It was such a perfect way to end that game.
It was the chocolate on the croissant. I mean, obviously, the Fabian Schär goal, sitting at home, and bear in mind it's like nearly 11 o'clock where I am watching that, and I let out a noise that very similar to Gary Neville. Very, very similar. It was trying to conserve me voice because I do live in an apartment block, and you know there is neighbours, but fuck them. No, see it ends that way, and you just as if you couldn't believe it already. You know, at 1-0, at 2-0, at 3-0, at 3-1 even. Final whistle goes and you look at that scoreboard and you just think, we've just beat Paris Saint-Germain, who were finalists in this competition last year. We just beat them 4-1. I mean, how I'm still, and you know, we all are, but still all just
setting me off again. Sorry.
It's just incomprehensible. And what's so satisfying as well is no one really gave us a chance, and particularly after the Milan game. And the players in Eddie Howe's come out and admitted that the Milan game, they probably played the occasion rather than the game. They've got back to the basics since then of what worked last year. And this is one of, granted, there's a lot of talk about the French league being a farmers league. PSG still have world-class players, irrespective of who their competition is in their domestic league. And for us to just be so astute and not even just match them, actually like push them for them to think, shit, we're in trouble here. Like, and you've got player, and it's testament to. I always go on about how many players we've still got from the championship days, and Lascelles, Longstaff, are some of them, and for the performances they put in is like absolutely exceptional. I genuinely still can't believe it, and like I say, it's what's really satisfying is those people that, like I've seen, I think Chris and Dan mentioned it at the end of their podcast, that these like podcasts that get paid to watch like Champions League games, and they're almost like wanting Newcastle to get beat just to prove the point that we don't belong there, and to give a massive middle finger to those who quite clearly don't watch the club, don't have any affinity to the club, they don't know what the club's about, they don't know what the fans are about. And for us to turn over an elite side like PSG is a fucking massive middle finger to them. And it's actually hilarious because you can see them now getting angry that shit, it's actually a decent club. It's so satisfying. Like I genuinely cannot put it into words how proud last night's performance made me as a Newcastle fan. It's just mind bending.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even the fact, players from the Championship, even it's players before the takeover. I mean, I think there's 6 people on that pitch. Maybe it's 5, 6 people on that pitch by the end of the game, certainly, who were all there before the takeover. In fact, 160 million pounds worth of players were out injured. So you can't even say it's because we spent all this money because, yeah, granted, okay, we've got Bruno, we've got Tonali, Trippier, Isak. But, they're the big money signings. You maybe see Anthony Gordon throw that in as well at 40 million. But we were spending that sort of money every now and again, on Joe Linton and on other players for, the same money for Gordon. So, it's really down to hard work. It's really down to, actually getting a manager in who knows football and who can actually set up tactically, not with a, I don't do tactics previous manager who I'm not going to tarnish this video with giving him any respect of his name, but we all know who we're talking about. It reminded us of that performance was, just epitomizes what we've been doing recently when, you look at what beating Tottenham last season at home, going 3-3 with Man City last season, giving Liverpool a very good game, both games last season, beating Man U. It's where I know we've all spoke about the 5 or 10 year plan, but we haven't just got here by mistake in terms of what we're doing. And that 5-year plan now is probably a 3-year plan, and that 10-year plan is definitely a 5-year plan now because we've proven we can do it. And as long as we can keep this up, and I think we can, and I think we've got the players with the mentality to keep this up. And I don't think any of those players would ever be like in January in the summer, like, I want to leave. Like, there's none of them players are going to want to do that. And if anything, what this has done to us is other players from other teams in the Champions League, in Europe, wherever, we're looking at that and going, I want to play on that side. I want to not just experience the crowd, but I want to be in that. And I think my dad put a very good comment on Twitter about a band of brothers. And that's what it is. They're all playing for each other. They're not just playing for themselves. Long may that continue. And that's really all down to Eddie Howe and how he's got them playing and how he's got the club just believing in themselves a bit more. It's not all going to be good, but we'll certainly ride the roller coaster, shall we say?
We'll take the highs of the highs and the lows of the lows. We've already done the lows of the lows, and we're now taking the highs of the highs. Yeah. The lows that come won't be as low as they have been. Let's just say that there will still be lows, and you can't expect it all to be rosy. But I mean, there's never going to be as bad as it has been. I do want to touch on obviously a few players that we maybe haven't mentioned or who deserve a mention. Obviously we've said Anthony Gordon. I thought he had an outstanding game. I thought Tonali was solid in the middle. He's done so much running in that first half. I think he had to be taken. I think it was sick. I think it was earlier. I think I said it was Anderson.
Anderson came on for Tonali.
Anderson for Tonali. But I think Tonali he's not Eddie Howe fit yet. like Anthony Gordon
Yeah.
said last season.
Yeah.
Can't wait for him to get Eddie Howe fit, by the way,
Oh,
because he's going to be some
tearing,
player.
he'll be tearing it up when he gets to that point. Like,
Yeah. Obviously, Bruno was outstanding
He
again.
was fantastic.
He
Do
was
you want to touch a little bit on his
absolutely-
challenge, though?
yeah, I mean, he was absolutely loving his life, just doing turns and spinning defenders and midfielders in that midfield last night, and he was just absolutely loving his life. But yeah, you're right about his challenge.
He was
challenge
very,
was a
very lucky
It
boy.
was towards
Very,
the
very
end of the
lucky.
first half, I think, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
And I think had that been, 60 minutes in, he's off, because the referee's like, okay, you're just getting a bit too carried away, we'll let you go. But he does swing for the lad. He does. I know it may not have caught him too much, but he still makes contact with the back of his head. Like, you just can't do that. And I put in the group chat, I was like, he's a very, very lucky boy, because that would have been a red. And I was very surprised VAR looked at it. And
do we think it was he only got yellow because the ref must have maybe just caught a glimpse of it? Do you think?
I think had the ref not given him a card at all, he gets a red.
That would have been
Yeah.
But I think it's again one of those where a yellow card, I've mentioned in previous podcasts, like it could be an armbar card, like not quite a red, but not quite a yellow, like something a bit more serious. But yeah, like it could have been either, but the referee gave him a yellow, so it's not an obvious error, so it doesn't get overturned. He does need to get that out of his game. Obviously, Miggy and Trippier on that right-hand side, outstanding yet again. The two centre-backs. I think for me, Fabian Schär was my man of the match. Before his goal as well. Before his goal, he was outstanding. He was so solid. And then to get his goal at the end was good. And even Nick Pope, like, obviously, you can't kick a ball.
Last 6 minutes.
You can't kick a ball, and let's get that out of the way. I don't think this is on purpose, let's be honest. I know there's people, conspiracy theorists going, oh, well, he's doing this so they've got to take a throw in so that we can press. From what I've heard from people who are in the ground, by the time that fourth ball goes out, Eddie Howe is ripping his hair out. Like, he's not impressed with Nick Pope. So I don't think that's on purpose. We've said it in previous reactions and previews that Nick Pope's distribution isn't great. And it really wasn't great for those 4 goal kicks in a row that he put into the East Stand or wherever it is he put them. I'm probably missing players. I know I am. So feel free to chime in and help. I mean, every single player is a 9 or a 10. Like, I don't think anyone had a bad game by any stretch of the imagination.
Even Elliot Anderson, when he came on, like, I think because he's so young and obviously another local lad, he plays without fear. Like, and I think, to be honest, I think that's what's going to benefit us in this Champions League group is we don't really have anything to fear. And that's not from an arrogant point of view, as some of our French viewers commented on the match preview.
Who's arrogant now, eh?
I think that's just from we're not expected to do anything, so we can go out and play as freely as we want. And he went on a little run and he checked back again. I think he either had a shot that was blocked or he tried to get a pass off and it just didn't come off. But for a young lad of his age on the Champions League stage, again against world-class players, to have the confidence to do that is exceptional. And it goes back to the preseason he had with like, I was thoroughly impressed with him. But like you say, literally every one of those players that entered that pitch come off at least a 10. At least a 10. It can only be a 10.
Wow.
At least a 10. Some people even come off as a 14. But no, I just like I say, it's just testament to how Eddie Howe sets up. And it's go back to what you say as well, that about the sort of ethos at the club. They aren't playing to get a big contract elsewhere. They aren't playing for their own. They're playing for each other, and I think that's what Dan Burns says. Like, he was very complimentary of Lascelles, and he said, like, I was out of position, Lascelles would come and cover us, and we all fight for each other, and you could see that. Like, and I think it goes back to that cliche of hard work beating talent when talent doesn't work hard, and that was the epitome of us last night.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap this one up because I think Daryl's about to burst into tears. So we'll save him. We'll save him that on camera, and maybe you can go and play some FIFA and calm down or something. But let us know in the comments below what your reaction to this game is. Have you came down from cloud 9 yet, or are you on cloud 14, like Ian said? Who knows? If you like this video, please scroll down from it and hit the little thumbs up. Don't hit the thumbs down. We're 141. Thumbs up only on this one. While you're down there, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when more videos go live on this channel. And if you want to go one step further, you can become a member. It's $2.99 a month. That gets you early access to certain videos, as well as access to the Telegram group. That group was absolutely buzzing last night, and it still is now, and it has been, to be honest, since the takeover, and probably even before then. It's been a nice little community to be part of, and it's worth the $2.99 alone. Yeah, put your not safe for work head on though if you do go in there, because sometimes the conversation turns a bit blue, shall we say. But it's all in jest and it's all in good faith.
It is.
That's it for this one. Boys, we're 141
Against PSG.
against PSG
in the Champions League. Like,
in the
fucking hell.
Champions League.
Like, shall I tell you what's class as well? Just to end on a really, really sort of wholesome note, that it goes back to what Daryl was saying about Bobby's boys giving a generation of heroes, and this sort of set the precedent for that next generation. There was a lovely moment. I don't know if anyone else caught it. Can't remember. It was after maybe's the first goal, but there's a father and there's a son celebrating together, and he proper embraces him, and it's moments like that that will stick in that little lad's head forever. And all the sort of young fans that are coming through, like, I can't remember who it was. It was someone saying that the son or the kid had their Barcelona moment, and it's just absolutely, like, again, I started off the podcast by saying it, like, to think where we were 2 years ago. And I'm not saying we are the most hard done by club, because let's face it, there's hundreds of clubs that have went out of business, that are on the brink of going out of business. But this is our story, and we can't be anything other than like invested in where we are now compared to how we were the last 14 years. So we're going to win the Champions League. Daryl's going to cry. I'm going to go in the shower. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Just to cool off.
I'm absolutely boiling.
Well, those tops aren't the coolest thing to be wearing.
They're not very breathable.
A mini heat wave coming this weekend apparently. So yeah, that'll be fun. Anyway, sorry, we've gone on way too long for this one, but we will let everybody go. Thanks everybody for watching. We will see you all in the next one. Ta-da.
Bye-bye.